So it is Wednesday night. I think it's almost 8:30 at night, and I got some splaining to do because obviously, for one, I haven't really actually vlogged anything yet this week. And also, as I'm recording this, I still have not uploaded last week's vlog, and that's because there's been some things I've been deciding on and talking about and trying to figure out, and this week's just been kind of a very lax week for me because there's some changes that I think are going to be going into effect here very soon that I want to let you guys know about, and it's going to be why maybe my videos don't come out nearly as often here in the next few weeks. I know I'm starting this video off on kind of a very somber note, but I do want to let you guys know what's going on, because as this is mostly my weekly vlogs where you guys get to see a little bit more of my life usually and how crazy it is, it's really important to me that I tell you guys what's going on and kind of how I'm faring, because I know there's quite a few of you that really do care about me personally and you would like to know how things are going for me. As many of you guys know, this year, 2020, starting out, was going to be a very, very busy year because I'm getting married. I'm hopefully going to be moving in May. I'm going to New York at the end of May for BookCon, and I'm hopefully getting a new car at some point this year. And so there's a lot of things that are just happening that makes it very stressful. Mostly it's the wedding aspect, because there's so much that I have to plan and so much that I have to take care of, and we have to start figuring out how to pay for stuff. And then with that, especially, the other big thing is the house situation, with finding a place that we're really gonna like and that's closer to where I work, and trying to essentially figure all that out within 3-4 months. So that's probably the most stressful part of it, and the wedding is a very close second. There is so much that I have going on that I feel like I can't spend enough time with all of it, because outside of all that personal stuff that I have going on, there are so many different projects and things that I do on a daily basis, or try to do on a daily basis, that I feel like don't get nearly enough attention. Things like my YouTube channel. Now, I know I've been kind of cutting back on a lot of the content recently, but sometimes, especially during readathon based months, the content can get a little overwhelming, even if it's just mostly doing a weekly reading vlog. And then there's my writing projects. So I've been still working on the second draft of my mystery thriller novel here for a good few months. I finished the first draft in April of 2019, and I am still in the process of working through draft 2 because it has just been very slow going, and I haven't really had a lot of time to sit and focus on it in its entirety, and I have only 3 chapters left to really rework before the second draft is done, and then I can get to the third draft. And I just don't have any time to do it because I have so many other things going on usually. And even on the weekends when I typically would set aside time to do those things, I'm so overwhelmed with everything else that I have going on in my life that it's very hard for me to sit down and actually have the energy to do anything with it. On top of that, I also try to make time for friends and family, and also having time with Robert, because while all that stuff I do typically is very much for other people, or it's it's not so much for myself, I don't feel like I spend a lot of time with people that I care about, especially Robert, and I live with him. I feel like a lot of times, especially during my days, I get home from work and I feel like I have another job that I have. So basically how I'm feeling is very stressed out, because you guys know I work a full-time job. I work 40 hours a week, and my drive is a 40-minute drive all the way there and then 40 minutes all the way back. So I usually get home anywhere between 4:45 to 5 o'clock in the evening, and then I usually have something to do with my channel, and there is where it feels like it's another job. And I've been realizing this a lot more recently, because especially with all these things going on this year, it's been becoming very stressful and very straining on my mental health. When I come home, I feel like I have a whole other job. I feel like I have a part-time job with my full-time job, and I never wanted that to happen with anything that I've done that was supposed to be for me and supposed to be my creative space, or something that I was doing for myself kind of thing. And my YouTube channel has always been one of those things that has always been for myself. It's been my creative space, it's been something fun for me to do, and it's never been anything that I wanted to make a full-time job like most people do when they go on YouTube. And unfortunately, as it has happened actually many times over the course of me having this channel, probably 4 or 5 times, it has felt like it's become a job again. And I don't like that. I have never liked that part of that. And usually what I've done in the past is, when it starts to feel like a job to me, when it starts to feel very stressful, I would take a break for maybe a few weeks, and then I would usually come back with a very big creative boost for some reason, because in that time I would take a break, I usually get some really great ideas for what I wanted to do with the channel and how I wanted to revamp it. And that was always really fun because I really liked being able to come back and be like, I've got all this great new content. But this time, this is something that's a little harder for me to do right now. So basically what I'm trying to say is that right now I'm heavily considering stepping back from my channel for a little while, at least probably for a good few months, until a lot of the stuff that I have that's really stressing me out dies down. I feel like I'm way more stressed out than I need to be because I keep thinking I need to have things on a set schedule, and especially with my reading, that is where I feel like I get the most stress because I'm constantly wanting to have content for my channel, so I feel like I have to constantly be reading, and when I don't read I feel guilty, but I feel guilty about not doing things with Robert in the evenings because that's the only time I get to see him before he heads off to work. So there's just been this really huge wedge that's been dividing me right now, and unfortunately the YouTube channel is really the big crux of it. That is the wedge that is driving right now in my life. And I really hate to say it, but I do think that a much more extended break for right now is going to be the best thing for me. Now, what that means though is I am going to finish the House Cupathon this month because there's only a few days left, and there is a readathon I am going to be hosting in the beginning of March with my friends Adri and Liv. I am still going to do that because the readathon itself that we have planned is only about 10 days long, so it's not going to take up a whole month like the House Cupathon is. And in the future I will continue to be in the House Cupathon when it comes around, but I think that other than those very few and far between things, I'm gonna need some time away from my channel. And really, I think a big piece of it too is fall in love with my reading again and not feel stressed about my reading. I'm still gonna have goals, I'm still gonna have a TBR running as things go, I'm still gonna do the things I've been doing in my TBRs with like the library lottery system and my Stephen King series that I'm doing, and you know, rereading the Morganville vampires and all that stuff, but I'm just not going to be making videos for a while, and that is just something that I feel like I have to do because for my mental sanity, that's what I think is going to be best for me, as YouTube takes up so much of my time anymore, and I feel like I said, it's a huge mental strain, and it's just like having a part-time job on top of my full-time job, which I do not need. I do not need this unneeded stress in my life when I already have so many things that I am stressing out about. And I just feel like this is going to have to be how it's going to be for a while. So I know I'm starting this vlog off on such a really sad and somber note, but I do want to let you guys know that this is going to be happening. Once the House Cupathon is over in January, I am going to be taking a break. And to be completely honest, I may even step away from social media in general because social media is kind of another part of my stressor because I feel like it's constantly been a thing where I'm comparing myself to so many people, and I don't need to, I don't want to, and it seems silly to me that I'm even able to do that to myself. So I think that I may even take a small step back from social media in general and not really post a lot. I'm gonna basically just kind of go MIA for a little while, but I will in February though at least post a video with the announcement for the readathon that Adrian, Liv, and I are doing, because obviously I'm gonna have to post one and I'm gonna have to post a TBR video for that, but they're not gonna be for a few weeks. So anyway, that is something I did want to discuss with you guys before we went any further with this vlog. So I will have this vlog out, and then next week we'll have my last vlog for the House Cupathon because the House Cupathon ends next week, with the 31st being on a Friday, which is I think pretty awesome. I like the idea of the readathon ending on a Friday night. I still have not finished Something Strange and Deadly by Susan Dennard. I am at this point just a little under halfway through it right now, and that's just because I haven't really had like a lot of time to read recently. I've just been trying to figure some stuff out, and when I go to sit down to read, I enjoy the book like itself, but I don't have the attention span as much as I want to with this one, and I think that's just because I've also been sitting out in the living room watching Robert play video games, and so I get distracted, because that tends to happen a lot, which is why I had this reading nook, but I wanted to spend the evening with him tonight. And so I do like it though. I wish the writing was a little different because I feel like it's not necessarily juvenile, but the writing of Something Strange and Deadly is kind of not on par with what I had expected it to be. But at the same time, this was Susan Dennard's very first series. Like, this was her debut series. So I'm not going to really knock it too badly because obviously with a debut series, the writing is not going to be super well fleshed out yet. It's still a process, so I'm not going to count it against her too badly for that. So then as far as my audiobooks so far for this week, I've gotten through 4, which is really awesome. So I have listened to Hot Ice by Nora Roberts. That was my first audiobook for this week, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because I liked it much more, I think, than I did the other Nora Roberts book I read before, the Divine Evil. And I really liked it because I felt like this was very, very fun. It was definitely romantic in a lot of spots, but the whole idea of it was that you had this socialite who ended up running into this guy who is like a con man of sorts, but he basically is going on this big treasure hunt, and he kind of runs into her and destroys her car. And so she, the socialite, is kind of like bored. She doesn't really like what she's doing right now, and so she decides to tag along with this guy on this big treasure hunt to find basically this set of jewels from Marie Antoinette, which supposedly would really shake up a lot of the theories about how Marie Antoinette actually ruled as a queen of France before the French Revolution. So it was really fun. Like, it was really fun to listen to, and I greatly enjoyed the banter between the main characters. I found that they were very, very funny. The guy was kind of an ass, but but I like this one a lot more than I did Divine Evil because I felt like I actually understood the story and nothing seemed too weird. It was just really fun to actually read something that was very different than what I read before, but I did find myself at times just kind of not paying attention. Like, there were some points where, especially like kind of the lull points of the story, I felt myself kind of drifting away, and that's because like the certain scenes in there weren't really keeping my interest, so it wasn't perfect, but I really did enjoy what I did listen to. So then the next day on Tuesday, I ended up finishing 2 audiobooks. I listened to Hunger by Roxane Gay, which is a memoir essentially of her dictating her struggles with her weight. And it goes much deeper than that. It goes into a lot about especially how Roxane, unfortunately, was sexually assaulted. She was gang raped by several boys that she knew growing up, and that led to her having some very, very serious body dysmorphia issues with the fact that she essentially ate so much as she got older because she wanted a way to repel attention from herself. The memoir also goes into so much about society's views of size, and especially about fat women and thin women, and how ridiculous a lot of the social beauty standards are. And I think it was just very eye-opening because I've known how ridiculous so much of the society's, standards on beauty are, and I have always been a very thin woman myself, but I never liked the fact that I've been always so thin because it was very hard for me to gain weight a lot of times as I was growing up. And thankfully, actually, in the last several months, I have gained quite a bit of weight, and I'm very happy with where my body is right now. But I really understand where a lot of Roxane's issues were for her, like her issues with her self-image, because she was in a very traumatic situation, and it severely affected her in a way that I don't think most people understand, nor would they expect somebody to deal with their trauma in that way. I just feel like it was such a heartbreaking story, but I really understood a lot more, I think, about how trauma affects people in this memoir, which wasn't really the real message of the story, I think, but I really feel like I understand more about how exactly trauma can affect different people because I had never heard of someone in the past ever having witnessed something traumatic and using food as a way to cope with that. I feel like it was just really eye-opening, but also incredibly heartbreaking because this was obviously this woman's story, and to hear her talk about a lot of the things that she had gone through growing up and as she became an adult, it just was really, really hard for me to hear because I can't even really imagine how she must have felt, and I really don't know if I will ever understand that. But regardless, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It was absolutely wonderful. And in the same day, I actually listened to the entirety of The Giver by Lois Lowry. This was a reread for me because I read The Giver when I was in the 7th grade. It was a required reading for my class, and I vaguely remembered some of the things that happened within this. Like, I remembered exactly like what the town was. Like, it was a dystopian community that, you know, had a very strict set of rules, and there was a kid that was assigned this job of the receiver, which essentially was receiving memories of the past from this other individual, and that was basically all I remembered of the story. And true to the actual story, that's exactly what it was. But I realized, like, going through this for a second time after having not read it in, God, like almost 10 years, probably about 10 years now, there's a lot more nuances to it, and I feel like it plays more into the society and how dark and twisted it is. And there is a particular scene that comes up in this book that I did not remember happening when I first read it, and I was greatly shocked. Like, I was absolutely floored with how much I forgot about this book, because I don't really remember much other than the main plot of the story or the main purpose of the town. I remember I enjoyed it, and I remember after we read it in my class, we watched The Village, one of M. Night Shyamalan's movies, which was actually pretty reminiscent of what The Giver was in a lot of ways. I just really had a great time re-listening to it. It was very short, and I don't remember it being that short, but when you're 12, anything like 200 pages or more is like, whoa, that's a lot of pages. I gave it a 4 to 5 stars because, again, I think with this one, I just kind of drifted a little bit too much in it, and that's because I don't think I jived so much with the writing style. And that's just my personal thing. Like, I didn't jive with it, so I feel like I got lost a lot, but other people have really, really enjoyed it with the writing style and all, and kudos to them. I just felt like I just got lost in some part. And then today I listened to the entirety of The Infinite Sea by Ricky Yancey. This is the second book in the Fifth Wave trilogy. And I gotta say, I was really impressed with this one because I remember reading The Fifth Wave about maybe 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago or so. And I liked it. I liked The Fifth Wave. I thought it was okay. I gave it a 3 stars. But what I could not stand was that there was an insta-love relationship played into the story. And I felt like I didn't really understand much of how exactly the world had gotten to where it is. And I feel like in the Infinite Sea, I got a better grasp of it. But I still didn't exactly understand what was going on, because there was a point in the story where, like, the bad guy essentially tries to tell what exactly they're doing, you know, why they're doing this, and it's just not fully expressed. Like, I feel like there's a lot of details that pop up throughout the story that you're kind of supposed to piece together, and I didn't quite get that, but I'm starting to get it more and more as I go. And I also just really liked this one because I felt like I understood the main character, one of the main characters, Cassie, a lot better. I feel like I liked her a lot more in this one, mostly because I think she just wasn't the same whiny little girl as I remember her being in the Fifth Wave. And what I really also liked about this is I felt like the story, the plot of it just kind of was very interesting because we had 3 perspectives mainly in the story, maybe 4. I can't exactly remember, but I think it was 3. And one of the perspectives, Ringer, who is one of the characters we meet towards the end of the Fifth Wave, she has her own storyline. It opens up a whole part of the story that I feel like was not mentioned a lot in the first book, and I feel like that's because it wasn't any space in the first book to really talk about it. But with her character, we really open up to see this other side of exactly what the others had planned to do and what their ideas were and what they wanted to do on Earth, that I think really just opened up so much more about understanding what exactly was the whole point of the others trying to destroy the Earth, essentially, and killing off every single human that there is on the Earth. I will say, though, like, I felt this, again, I just didn't quite still grasp everything with this story. I feel like I'm still missing something, and maybe that's because I don't fully understand everything. So if there are any Fifth Wave fans that could really explain to me what the purpose of the others is, please let me know down in the comments below, because I'd love to know. I really feel like I'm just losing everything when it comes to this, and I really want to understand what the whole point of this is.
Hey guys, so it is Friday night now, and as you may be able to see, I am at my parents' house tonight. So this weekend I had a lot of plans going on, and so I basically had to come home for them because I've got some stuff tomorrow that I'm doing for, like, my bridesmaids and stuff. Like, we're going shopping a little bit. My sister, my maid of honor, and my other bridesmaid are all basically going out to the mall. We're basically going to go look for my maid of honor's dress because we found a style when I went to get my wedding dress. We found a style that she really liked, but they didn't have it in her size, nor did they have it in the exact color that we wanted. So we decided that we were going to make a trip out and go to this other bridal store that we know and basically see if we could find something similar to what she liked. And if not, then she was just going to go to the store, the same store that we went to before, but closer to where she lives, so that she could actually get the dress she wanted in hopefully the right size and right color, because she didn't want to like buy anything without having tried it on in the correct size at least. So we're going out there for that, but we're also going out because I'm going to be getting pairs of shoes for Robert and I for our wedding. We're basically gonna, since we're having a Halloween wedding and it's gonna be really fun and very relaxed, we're gonna do like Converse with our stuff. Like we're gonna, instead of me wearing like high heel shoes, which would probably kill my feet by the time the ceremony's over, let alone the whole day, I'm gonna wear Converse and Robert's gonna wear a very similar pair of Converse. At this mall we're going to, there is a Converse outlet store there, and so I'm gonna go and get some shoes from there, which is gonna be awesome. And then I think I might do a little bit of shopping for myself. It really just depends on how I'm feeling and what's going on. I wish that Robert was here with me though, but he couldn't come this weekend because he has to work Sunday night, and I'm gonna be here until like Sunday early evening. Like I'm gonna be here till probably around 5:30 because Sunday we're having a party here for like a fundraiser party for my sister for softball. Basically it's to help her be able to afford to go with her team, her softball team, to go to Florida, which is their spring training that they do. Like they go down to Florida for the week of spring break and they go do softball training, and they also get to go do a lot of cool stuff. Like last year I think they got to go see a Tigers game while they were doing spring training in Florida, which was really cool. She got to meet a bunch of Tigers players last year, which was so cool. But they weren't able to go to like Universal or Walt Disney World, so I think that my parents are going to try to do that this year. But I don't know how that's going to work because they were going to do it as a team last year, go for a day, but that didn't end up working out for some reason. I can't remember. I think it was just a timing thing. They didn't have the time to be able to actually go do that. So I really hope they get to go do that this year, even though I'm not going to be with them. So to get to my reading updates, so the last couple days, I've gotten through 2 more audiobooks. I have read the entirety of Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. This is not my favorite Jane Austen novel. This is probably my least favorite, but I still gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because I just really found the main character to be very annoying and just, I don't know, like the whole story was about this young girl named Catherine who essentially is not very lucky when it comes to relationships. She's never really had a relationship, and she's not like conventionally pretty to a lot of people, so she's not really been someone who's had much luck with relationships because people don't really like think of her as someone they go after, if that makes sense. But there kind of is this budding relationship she has developing with this guy named Tinley, who she seems to really like, and it's kind of just her adventures as a 17-year-old young woman in 18th century England, basically learning about love and relationships and marriage and like how all that stuff works, and kind of where her place is in the world with all of this. And she deals with some relationships that like aren't necessarily hers, but like involve people she cares about and she knows, and it's kind of her just exploration on all of that, and especially in this time period, because in this time period specifically, Jane Austen is very well known for her novel Pride and Prejudice, which kind of had really gone against a lot of the conventions about marriage and the idea of a woman having more agency over who she decides to marry, and there was a lot of like massive backlash to her because of that in this time. And this story, Northanger Abbey, is technically her first novel. It's technically the first novel she ever wrote, but it wasn't actually published until after she had died. So this was something that came before Pride and Prejudice in terms of when she wrote it. So a lot of the things that are in this novel when it was published are very different, like ideas wise and thoughts wise, than what she may have actually had before she passed away. So it's just really interesting to see how this one is so very different from the story of Pride and Prejudice, because I feel like Northanger Abbey focuses a lot more on the conventions of marriage and like how a 17-year-old young woman has to kind of traverse all of those things, whereas Pride and Prejudice was more of like a woman should be able to gain agency over who she decides to marry and how she decides to live her life, and even if it doesn't include things like marriage. So it's just really, really interesting. I feel like it's always interesting to see how an author kind of goes when you see their first book that they publish or their first pieces of work that they actually fully write to something that they have before they pass away. Like, I really like seeing that kind of change because it shows that not only does the overall craft of story writing and stuff like that develop, but the overall ideas and messages that the author wants to send out to audiences do change based on their situations and what they experienced and what they really wanted to talk about when it came to writing these stories and what experiences led them to writing these kinds of stories. It's just very fascinating to me. Despite that, though, I really felt like the main character was just very trivial. She was kind of just dumb, and that might be harsh to say, but I feel like she just really was absolutely stupid. Like, I feel like I would have made way better decisions than she did, and I don't think I would have been nearly as clueless about how things would have gone. But again, it's kind of one of those things where I feel like I might have understood the story a little better, maybe understood her a little better if I had read it physically as opposed to listening to it through an audiobook. I feel like with a lot of classic literature especially, it's very hard for me to listen to anything on audio. Like, I keep trying to see if I can find like that little niche where in audiobook classic works I can find something that I really enjoy and feel like I understand the whole thing fully from front to back, and I have not found that as of yet. But from what I understood of the story, I liked it, but it was not my favorite Jane Austen story by any means. And then today I got through a large chunk of Barefoot by Ellen Hilderbrand. This is one of Ellen Hilderbrand's earlier novels. Like, this one came out in like 2007, whereas the other two books I read were post 2015, I think. And so this one is not my favorite Ellen Hilderbrand novel. Like, I'm at a point where I'm so far into the book that I should just finish it because I probably have like a little less than 5 hours left of the audiobook at this point, and it's like 15 hours long. But I'm so frustrated with this story. I feel like I don't like any of the characters. I don't understand the purpose of these characters, and it's just really annoying to me. I feel like though I'm so far into it, I have to finish it at this point because there's no point in me not finishing it when I have so very little left of it and I'm able to listen to it on 2x speed with no issues. Like, this is the first novel on audiobook that I've been able to listen to on 2x speed and not feel like it's just gobbledygook. Like, there are some audiobooks with the way that they're recorded, they are so slow paced with the speaking of the story that you have to put up the speed sometimes to actually feel like you are getting through the story and understanding what's happening, at least for me. And typically that's like 1.5, 1.75 speed is like kind of where I will go back and forth with usually with audiobooks. I feel like 1.75 I'm kind of getting more into, but this book in particular, 2x speed is like I can understand everything in the story. It's still a little slow, I think, for me, like in terms of the speed. Like, I wish I could bump it up a little more, but overdrive only goes up to 2x. And it's just, even with that though, the story is boring. Like, there's nothing that really happens. The thing that does happen is very, very questionable. Like, I really don't think this story is that realistic because of everything that happens. But when I finish it, I will have much more to say on it because, oh boy, this is going to be an interesting way to see how this one ends because there's a pretty sticky situation going on in the story, and I'm not too keen on it. I kind of don't like it, and that's all I'll say on it for now.